Hello, everyone. This is Nathan Allen from Poets and Quants, where I'm an editor and staff writer. Welcome to the CentreCourt one-on-one alumni interviews with recent grads from specialized master's programs. Today, we have Julia Castanet, who is working now as she just graduated from Duke's Fuqua School of Business with a specialized master's in quantitative management and business analytics. She can tell us more about that, obviously, coming up. Right now, she's working at Atlanta Digital Marketing Group in Atlanta, Georgia as a marketing specialist, but she just informed me that she has a job starting with Deloitte in January. So we'll talk about all of that. Julia, welcome.
Hello, Nate. It's so good to talk to you today. And one of my favorite things is to talk to prospective students or really anyone who will listen about Fuqua and Duke. I loved my year there so much.
Great. Yeah, we're super happy to have you. It sounds like a really interesting program that you did. So let's start back, as far back as you want to go. You went to Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina. You got the BBA degree, the Bachelor of Business Administration. You also got a Bachelor in Spanish Language and Literature. So as you were finishing these degrees at Furman, what was it that made you want to look at a specialized master's degree?
Yeah, so I think my answer for why I picked business analytics is a little bit inextricably linked to why I picked Fuqua as well, because I can't say that I would have just pursued my master's at just any school. But for starters, as you said, I studied business administration, which while I felt that it was super helpful for making me more of a generalist in business, and I could have gone in a lot of different directions with that, I felt like I always migrated a little bit more towards my quant heavy classes, really was interested in operations, but felt like I wanted to hone my technical skills. And when I say hone, really start from ground zero and build those skills up to enhance my skill set, but then also to learn about myself and figure out what it was that I wanted to learn and do in my career going forward. So I picked it for those reasons, and then as I'm sure we'll get into, there were elements of Fuqua specifically that I think made me say, oh my gosh, definitely doing this as opposed to jumping straight into the workforce.
Yeah, definitely want to talk about Fuqua and your experience there. But before we go there, to me, it feels like applying to a specialized master's program at a competitive school like Duke Fuqua while you're finishing up your degree, and in your case, 2 degrees, just seems super complicated and time consuming. Can you just walk us through kind of the practical steps you took when applying for a job while you're balancing everything else, that people are whenever they're graduating from college?
Yeah, I think that's a really fair question. And as I sort of alluded to also, I was doing that, but then also simultaneously pursuing some job opportunities because I think at
Right.
that point in time, I was saying, do I want to go to grad school? Is it valuable to have some work experience first? So, from a practical standpoint, I think I had to have my ducks in a row in terms of preparing for the GRE. That's what I opted to take. I was just texting a Furman student who's actually looking at Duke about how she can prepare for it this morning. So preparing for your testing, it's really important, I think, for any business school, but also for Fuqua to reach out and build some sort of connection, either with the admissions reps who work at the school or with someone like an admissions ambassador, which is what I was doing when I was there, because it'll give you so much clarity in terms of whether or not you can see yourself vibing with the type of people who are there and if you really are a cultural fit. And then I think that makes the application process so much easier because as soon as you see that fit and you feel that alignment, you're prepared to just throw yourself into it, and really demonstrate that alignment as best as you possibly can. So those were key things for me talking to students and the admissions reps.
Right. And then what were some of the other programs that you were looking at, and why did you end up choosing Duke? And I know you've kind of answered this a little bit, but I'm wondering if you can go into any more detail about why you ended up choosing this specific program at Duke.
Yeah, so one of the other programs, there's other programs in the Southeast that I was really focused on because, again, those seemed like the easiest ones to pursue while also maybe considering this job, this idea of doing a job. And I looked at Wake Forest's program as well, similar, I would say, in terms of format and whatnot. But I really liked that Duke had these different tracks. So we have 4 different tracks in strategy, forensics, finance, and marketing. It allows you to be a little bit more specialized. And as I alluded to before, I had a great interest in operations. And so the strategy track, which is what I ultimately pursued, has a little bit more of a focus in that area. So that's one of the things I would say that made me lean towards Duke or initially piqued my interest. But then as soon as you talk to any person at any level of Fuqua, you will hear them talk about this idea of Team Fuqua. And I'm sure I'll touch on it throughout the course of our entire conversation. But it's just this idea that the culture is really a team, and everything that you're going to tackle, both I would say personally or academically, you're going to do that in a team. And it's not just any team, but it's an extremely diverse team. And that's in a very holistic sense. And so my classmates were from all around the world, tons of different cultures. Most of my peers, many of them I would say, were engineers. One of my teammates was a psychology major. My roommate was an advertising major. And so truly these diverse perspectives coming together and having to collaborate in a team. And that can teach you so much. But I also think the fact that they prioritize that so much immediately gave me the sense that I was going to be in a culture where people were ambitious and driven and excited, but by the same token, it's not a cutthroat environment. It's not, I want you to do worse so I can do better. And I always knew that when I'm looking to put myself in different communities, environments, things like that, that's the most important thing for me is a support system and a team and familial spirit. So that's
Yeah.
what ultimately pushed me towards Fuqua.
Totally. Cool. And so, and then once you got there, what were some of the highlights of the program? I noticed on your LinkedIn profile that you were involved with the Duke Interdisciplinary Social Innovators group program. I'm not sure what exactly that is. You can tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that, but that, and then what are some of the other highlights of the master program there at Duke?
Okay, I could spend the whole time talking about this, so I'll try to rein it in.
All right.
There's so much outside of the classroom that was incredible. The classroom was outstanding, and I think that was such an interesting transition. I'll only touch on that briefly because there's so much to say, but the classroom's neat because you're being taught by professors who are published here, here, and here, and they're sitting on this board at Amazon and this board at Google. And so that was so, as a geek and a nerd, I was just dumbfounded by that, and I loved my time in the classroom. But that being said, there was also so many things that they planned for us socially and just to get to know our peers because, as I mentioned, so many of my classmates were coming in from all around the world that we really had to create this melting pot where, people don't get to say, oh, I have Thanksgiving and I'm going home to my family. No, they came home with me to my family. And that was so special. But couple quick highlights. We had a ton of fun social things. Like we have this famous thing called the Duke Camp Out, which is where all of grad students from like med school, law school, all of these things camp out for a whole weekend. And it's really difficult for some people. Many people don't survive. Whistles are blown. We have to run. We have to swipe our card. And even at the end of the entire weekend, you're entered just into a lottery to try to get one of the Duke basketball tickets. All of this is for basketball, if I didn't say that. So my
Yep.
entire tent and I who survived to the end won. And so that also opened up an entire world of fun for our social lives because almost every week we were going to a Duke basketball game. So that was one of the social highlights, but they planned ski trips for us, paintball activities, just so many things to create a family environment.
Yeah.
But I'll touch on DISI, Duke Interdisciplinary Social Innovators, a little bit.
Yep.
Again, this was an opportunity amongst the different graduate schools. So again, law students and a lot of engineering students, and you get to work on different pro bono consulting projects for nonprofits in the area. So for my particular role, I was a project manager. So I got to manage the team of maybe 6 different interdisciplinary students.
Okay.
And we had a nonprofit. I did it for 2 semesters, so 2 different nonprofits in Durham. And I think what was most special about it was when you're in business school, you're in such a grind that sometimes you don't get outside the bubble of business school. And whether that means, you don't get outside to meet other students or you don't get outside to get to know the community that you're in. DISI was a way for me to do both of those things while
Mhm.
also giving back, so to speak. So
Right.
I loved that experience.
Yeah, I know Duke has been doing a lot in their social enterprise and social innovation areas. They're one of the schools that really talk about it quite often. So it's very cool that you got to take advantage of that and experience some of that innovation that they're doing there. So, next I want to ask you, and again, we've kind of hit on this a little bit, but you served as an admissions ambassador, and you mentioned how you're just now texting, a student at Furman right now, getting ready to make the similar path to you. So you have these conversations quite a bit. What are some of the top pieces of advice you can give, um, seniors in college, recently graduated undergrads who are looking to get into a specialized master's program at a business school?
Yeah, I would say, as I mentioned before, just talk to people from that program. I think it'll immediately give you a sense of not only are you a culture fit, but are the types of things within a specialized program like Fuqua or like any other business analytics programs, are the types of careers that you can go into from that, things that you would be interested in. Or am I going to enjoy myself? Am I going to enjoy the curriculum? So talking to someone will give you that sense. And then, like I said, I think it makes it possible to almost have your essays write themselves and your application, for itself. But then I would also say Duke specifically, we have an essay, which if you've ever talked to anyone from Duke, you'll hear about the 25 random things essay, which is really unique because I didn't apply to any other top 10 business schools, but I don't imagine that many others would say, hey, just as importantly as we will weigh your GMAT score, we're also going to look at this essay about random facts. And so a lot of my peers and I have referenced how even just taking the time to write that was a really, really nice self-reflection process of
Yeah.
getting to know ourselves better so that when we went on to do interviews and things like that, we were very in touch with, okay, who are we? What makes us differentiated? What makes us interesting? Because at the end of the day, we all have the competencies to do many of the roles, but when we're able to share interesting, quirky things like that, it can really
Yeah.
set you apart. And then the last thing I would say, advice wise, is just to be yourself. I have some students ask me, like, oh, I'm worried about this one part of my application or this one part. And I think there's no use in worrying too much because all you can be is yourself. And in particular, I think I talked to many students who have a similar profile to me in that they're a little bit less technically inclined coming in. And I am always completely transparent with them. And I'll say this on camera now. I didn't know how to open up SQL. I didn't know how to connect to a server. I really didn't know how to do those things, but I knew how to work hard and to ask questions. And in the process of the program, I learned how to rely on others to grow me in areas where I wasn't as strong. And so you don't have to be intimidated or daunted by any one facet of the program, whether you're engineering, wanting to learn business, business wanting to become more technical. Just be yourself and talk to people to feel better, but also just have the confidence too.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for that. So lastly, we're getting close to our time, unfortunately. But lastly, I want to ask about from the career side of things. So with the MBA degree, the big thing about the MBA degree and like switching careers and switching functions and industries and that sort of thing is the internship. So obviously with a specialized master's, you don't necessarily have that full-time internship because you're in school all the time. So how did you navigate finding a job, and how was Duke Fuqua specifically helpful in finding the jobs that you found afterwards?
Yeah. So I I say and give credit to our career center for basically all of my career success because, as I mentioned to you, I came to this program not only for the skills, but also just to learn, okay, what is it that I want to do when there's this world of business administration and I'm so uncertain? Where do I want to start? And so, starting off, I think the biggest asset in a career management center is an alumni base, and we're able to rely on not only our own from MQM, which at this point in time is 3 years deep now, so those people, but also the larger Fuqua network. And
Mm-hmm.
we had one particular break because we get breaks between our terms, and some of my friends and I from MQM went to Boston, met up with some other MQM alumni. They sat there with us for hours talking. I mean, we got dinner, we got dessert. They were so generous in terms of talking through what they were interested in, what they wanted to do. They were consultants. One of them worked at Deloitte. I'm going to be starting working at Deloitte in their technology consulting practice. And so I attest a lot of my interest in my ability to have learned what I wanted to do through those conversations, and then tons of phone calls that I had with alumni. But you know, once you just, it's not enough to just know what you want to do. You have to have
Right.
the tool set to get there. So we have an incredible woman named Meredith Bolin, and she does tons of the career stuff for us, is feeding us opportunities, is making sure that we have the skills through pitch practice, case prep, behavioral interview prep, technical interview prep, all of those things that you could fill up an entire social schedule just by doing
Right.
those. And so there was tons of resources. They're at your fingertips. It's your job to pursue them and take what you need, and everyone comes in a different place. I had never touched a case interview in my life, and then because I was going through consulting recruitment, that was king for me to be able
Yeah.
to nail a case. And so I remember sitting with some of my peers who were so well versed in cases, and this was my experience all of business school, but I had to just become comfortable with failing flat on my face in front of my peers. And again, because it's Team Fuqua, I picked myself up, they supported me, we moved forward, but
Yeah.
we had tons of resources for that.
Great. Awesome. Well, Julia, thank you so much for your time. This has been very helpful. We're past our 15 minutes, so we're going to have to go now. But again, everyone, this was Julia Castanet. She graduated from the MQM, Master in Quantitative Management program at Duke's Fuqua School of Business, and is getting ready to start a role at Deloitte in January. Thanks for your time, Julia.
Thank you so much.
And for everyone else, my name is Nathan Allen, and this has been Poets and Quants one-on-one alumni interviews. Thanks.